Okay, welcome to the live, everybody, and we will go into the questions. I just had to get up a PowerPoint presentation I made uh, to answer the gravity question. Okay, let's go. Right. Okay. So first of all is Ignace's question about German new medicine. Is the model correct? So first of all, just one thing to say about this is that if you look into medical data, there's people who've died because they didn't want to take conventional therapy, but took the German medicine model instead. So we have to always bear that in mind, that when it comes to Western medicine and kind of alternative therapies, which German medicine is, usually it's about 50% of each one works. So if you combine both together, you get a better result. So we mustn't ever dismiss Western medicine, which has its somewhat sort of a surgical and very biochemical approach with medicines, but it still has its place in health, of course. And then the same with complementary medicines, which are again extremely valuable. But they have caveats. And we also have to always remember that it depends on who the practitioner is, because obviously some doctors and dentists and opticians are better than others. Same with some acupuncturists are much better than others. So we always have to consider that model, that whenever we're following a method, when the person who invented it may or may not still be alive, we're relying on the people they trained who may have added their own flavor to things always. So we'll investigate this, because also people that follow Dr. Tom Cowan, because I did his training, you can tell he also has taken bits of German new medicine theory in as well. And I have to say, I'm not trained in it, so I'm not an expert in it, but it's something that, of course, I've got lots of German colleagues like Ralph and things like that. So I do know what it is, and it is pretty big. So, like it has, I think, five core principles or five biological laws, and it does also tie in with what Tom Cowan says when he talks about heart attacks, especially that unexpected stressful events can actually, and the emotional shock can trigger a disease in the psyche or a specific organ or whatever. So this is has shown to be true about a really unexpected people having, say, a cardiac event from possibly a medicine or a vaccine or even just a stressful event. So we can say that, yes, that part of the model, we agree that some physiological illnesses or somebody suddenly developing an illness is the result of some kind of emotional trauma. So that's kind of agreeable, including things like cancer, which does have a very strong emotional component as well, about harboring anger and resentment. So there's that side, which we can agree on. Then I think there's something like the two-phase nature of disease, which sometimes a fever would be an example, that we're calling a fever like an illness, whereas actually it's some part of a healing pathology. And people like Argenis von der Plantis also used to say that sometimes people getting a cold or illness is the body just clearing out some other form of stress or illness or toxin or whatever that we were unaware of. And this also, as you know, if you follow Tom Cowan about the non-contagion theory, that would be something that we don't know that a full answer yet. When it comes to a virus, I agree with Tom Cowan that nobody's ever seen one by itself. They're always within media, that you can't get one all on its own. It always comes with the tissue culture media or the bodily excretion. But we do know that bacteria are definitely real, and there are sort of microscopes we can see them with, and So that's why I'm a bit undivided on the non-contagion theory. I don't know. But I do agree that lots of things our body does that we may not particularly like, for example, being sick or having diarrhea, is not a disease. It's just the body clearing stuff out. I used to work with somebody in when I worked in science, and he always said that it's good every now and again to have a good bout of diarrhea. He was called Dr. Parrish, and it was the body's way of resetting the microbiome. And then I do agree with the German New Medicine's view here about microorganisms, because if we think about it, we're only something like 10% human and a human cell, and then everything else is made up of fungi and viruses and bacteria, and they all are not necessarily our enemies, and can play a role in healing, which is when people have discovered this by themselves by having huge amounts of antibiotics over the years and ended up with really bad other different illnesses and still have the problem of they were trying to get rid of. So sometimes killing everything biological isn't always the best idea. But like I said, people still die of sepsis and infections. So we have to also consider the fact that not all bacteria are helpful, and without modern antibiotics, there'd be a lot more fatalities, especially, what was the famous hospital, the story about when somebody enforced washing hands for delivering of babies, and all of a sudden a lot of deaths of mothers, or particularly mothers during childbirth, dramatically went down. And then there's also the biological meaning, I think, of every disease has an evolutionary survival purpose. So when it comes to German New Medicine, that's kind of an overall of the theory, but also within all of that, there's all kinds of really useful things that are true, like people peeing in their gardens and in their properties to mark their territory, to make boundaries. Then things that people that grow their own vegetables and apples, if you pee on your own plants, they'll analyze your wee and change what they put in the fruit or the vegetables so they can try and help you with anything that you're deficient in. But there's a lot more to it. And like I said, I'm not trained in it. And I think Sarah Kleiner has a podcast with somebody who was a German New Medicine practitioner. So there's plenty where you can do research. And also, like everything, I'm always open for people to try new things for problems, because you don't get interested in something unless you have a problem, be it a financial one or a business one, or a rash or a weight problem. And then people start to seek out different solutions, and there are lots of rights. So fundamentally, it comes down to, if you have a problem, I definitely would consider German New Medicine, because it offers a lot of interesting ways of dealing with things that are a much more natural approach. So I would say that it's something I'd definitely be interested in. But like anything, you have to never abandon sometimes certain conventional medicine treatments, because like, for example, the UK, we are good at sort of emergency medicine and things like that. So definitely to consider it. And it's like everything, it's pretty broad and there's different aspects to it. What I like about it is it does very much incorporate the mind-body link of how your emotions can make you unwell as well, which is true. And you can get different problems in different organs based on emotional situations, like working now with Professor Lung. When we look at, say, the liver or the spleen, meridians or organs, there's also always an emotional state that's attached to each one of these organs as well. So that's an important thing to always consider, that not everything's to do with the biology of something. It can also be our emotions, because they, of course, massively influence the body. So, yeah, that would be the situation there. And also, like everything, it's just about asking people who've tried German New Medicine what they thought of it and did it work, or trying it yourself. And then you can learn, because it's Sometimes I like having a problem because how can I possibly learn how to solve one unless I've got one? And then you become interested in it and you become focused on that, and then you become you're willing to try and learn, and then you'll become your own expert in that particular kind of problem when you get rid of it, and then you can tell other people what you did that worked and what you did that didn't work. So we propagate information that way. Right. Okay. Um, right. I'm going to come back to Vido's gravity question and a circadian signal because it needs a PowerPoint. Because I actually already taught this in a module in Australia. And when it comes to gravity, you have to remember that, first of all, it's going to be different depending on what planetary bodies are controlling it. Then gravity is very much likely to be accelerated charge wave. So when we've got charge and acceleration, we have voltage, and we know that all biology works on electronics. So if the gravity, it does change, because we'll see in a minute when we look at the proposed model of Tom Beard and Dan Winter. Even though I don't agree with all of anybody's anything, they both together have a very strong theory for what gravity is. So we'll come back to that because it's better if I explain it with a slide. And then Elle is asking, is there a link between blue light and cancer? Yes, a gigantic one. So first of all, if you watch Martin Moorehead's podcast, he discovered the SCN in 1972 as part of his team. And also he's worked all of his life on looking at light and different diseases. So he's an MD. So in the podcast, it says when women, say in Africa, they aren't exposed to artificial light, you don't really see any kind of breast cancer. And then anything like an organ that makes food, like a prostate or breast cancer, because blue light's also potentially blood sugar raises insulin. These are all growth factors. So there's a massive link to blue light and cancer. There's also the link between blue light and messing up melatonin and people not sleeping. So that's a big recipe for cancer as well, because melatonin's anti-cancer, and then sleep is when we do all of our repairing. So categorically, yes. There's also something called the Spanish study, which is a big cohort and meta-analysis of looking at artificial light and cancer. So it's pretty much agreed that it's going to, and even just the biology of the kind of things which blue light messes up, like glucose metabolism messes up mitochondria, so they're linked to cancer. So that's a definite yes. Then Linda Linda says, I'm wondering about trying NDT for thyroid symptoms. So first of all, you need an updated thyroid test, not something from a year ago. So that's a really important thing. And it needs the full panel, because you also need the antibodies, because some people have got a thyroid problem because of having a antibodies. So it doesn't mean your body's going to destroy your thyroid. It just is a warning sign there's something wrong with the organ. And there's lots of ways that don't involve medication for fixing autoimmunity, especially deuterium light. And then like an elimination diet can be really helpful to calm that down. Um, then she says about low body temperature. So yeah, I agree with Ray Pete there about taking your body temperature pulse around 60 to 63. I have chronic fatigue, heart pounding, nails that split, carotenomin in palms and soles, cold feet, constant tingling in hands, high triglycerides, anxiety, and depression. Yeah, because a lot of those other things can be controlled by other factors. And also remember about how oxygen is really important for how thyroid functions, because people are not completely 100% sure exactly what T3 does, because it does loads of things, but it definitely regulates how much oxygen gets into the mitochondria. So that's obviously really important for making water and running the electron transport chain and leptin. The other thing about thyroid is leptin controls thyroid, reverse T3, which you need to measure as well for thyroid if you're going to take thyroid meds, because if you get the dose wrong, your body just puts out way more reverse T3 and inactivates all the medication. then when it comes to high triglycerides and stress and heart's pounding and cortisol, then that's when we start to look into things like proper breathing mechanics, because lots of people have terrible breath patterning, and that also makes more anxiety and depression as well. So another thing, if somebody's already got anxiety, if you get the thyroid meds wrong, people can get worse anxiety. Yeah, so despite working on the light environment, so when it comes to doing the quantum biology in the UK, especially the north of England, it's not the same as everywhere else because you have to use the cold, and also anything to do with thyroid. The sunrise is the most important thing ever because that's a really important part of the central retinal pathway and controlling overall energy balance in the body. Also, the ultraviolet A is really important. So the clouds block ultraviolet A, but it's really easy to buy ultraviolet A lamps because they're not really regulated. You can buy a fly zapper. My mum uses that, and then you can buy bulbs. And then even though the clouds do block the UVA, you've got to still go out because still some photons will get through and the eye is very, very sensitive. And then with metabolically supportive food, I'd have to, I know you sent me something through on the private form. I haven't had a chance to look at it just because like lots of stuff just happened recently. So I've had to kind of focus on like some family things and other things, but I'll have a look. So I would say for all of these, just thinking, oh, thyroid hormones are going to fix all of this. I think there's way more other things going on in here as well. Also, again, about doing the proper kinds of healing exercises, not just Professor Lung's. There's lots of other kind of healing movements because if we think about when we move, it's not just about muscles and bones. It's also we're moving a lot of charge around the body, making electrons in the collagen. It's important for the mitochondria. With NDT, you have to pay, I think, a reasonable amount of money to see a private doctor in this country, and you'll have to get tests. But like everything, you can always, investigate that. If you've got labs to say that there's like proper labs, like I said, you need reverse T3 as well as T3, T4, and the antibodies. So they're all up to date. So you've got like a starting place. And then, like I said, there's really key fundamental basics that all tie into all of these problems as well. So, like I've learned over life, we have to kind of do things out of all different categories of the pillars of health, and they all matter. And another one that people always forget that I remind people of is you must have friends and you must have a sense of humor, because there are people who've cured themselves by with laughter. And a lot of times when I read things underneath comedy in YouTube, there are people who've said how it's cleared their anxiety and depression. And there's like books on laughter therapy and laughter yoga. So everything is never just one thing, but every bit can help. So I would say, yeah, that's fine. You can get the NDT. I'm just saying that in the UK, it's not the easiest place to even get T3. And you'd have to get a private doctor, or there are sort of private thyroid clinics that can prescribe things like this. But you also have to do the other things that I've suggested. And I can't emphasize how important the proper breathing, the heart breath coherence that I've been doing is, because anybody can do the heart breath. It doesn't matter if they're in pain or in a wheelchair or whatever, because it's extremely cheap and it's very, very easy. And luckily, Neil spent 10 years optimizing all of the parameters in it, and then also getting the proper kind of movements for healing as well. And these movements can be things like the 5 Tibetan rites, because that's pretty much free to do because you just have to go on the internet and learn it. Then I've got my flawless online Pilates, which I made in lockdown, and it's like about 15 or 16 lessons all on really easy things that are very neurological, that people who can't even go on the floor can do. And I added in face exercises and feet and nerve glides and things like that. So there's a lot of things that you can add into that. But yeah, you can investigate the NDT. As far as the meds go, that's probably the best one. but you still need proper labs to do it, which will probably come as part of the package. And then you need to retest also, because like I said, thyroid medication is a bit of a black art. And if you get it wrong, you get other symptoms as well. So that's what I do there.
Hi, Sarah. Is it okay just to speak to you about what you've
Yeah,
just said? Yeah, I mean, I have had a full thyroid panel with ferritin and everything on it, all the antibodies. But as I say, it's quite old now, so do need to get another one. But
yeah.
I know from looking into this for quite a long time that the labs are just, you can have perfectly good labs and still have a lot of symptoms. And like I say, the symptoms, especially the temperature tracking and the pulse, which I've been doing for some time, they're still low, and I've still got quite a lot of other what I think maybe thyroid related symptoms. And the reason why I'm suggesting NDT is because I've been trying for so long, like especially all through the summer. I was outside most of the day. I was outside more, from sunrise, UVA rise.
So did you see the sunrise in the summer? Because it's very antisocial in Britain.
Not when it was really, like 4:30 or whenever it was at the very earliest, but when it was sort of getting to like 6:30, 7 o'clock, I did. And at the moment, I'm doing sunrise. Excuse me, I'm doing sunrise now and UVA now, and I'm making sure I get out, even if I'm just sat in the garden in my coat and hat, because I can't, my activity is very limited. So I just feel the reason why I'm just I just feel like I've been really trying to pay attention to the email that you sent today about oxygen and leptin and stuff like that. I didn't really understand a lot of it, but I got the bare bones of it. And then when you put the practical
Yeah,
steps, I mean, I
yeah.
feel like I've been trying to do
The,
all those
the thing is,
things, you know.
for a long time, I've been saying that I really appreciate Jack Cruise's work, but there's a lot more. And, we just do what we can as best of our abilities. And then we move into a different category of very basic stuff like breathing.
Yeah.
And then I offered you my UVA and B lights, because when you're getting the UV light, what do you mean? Have you got like a UV light for inside, or because the clouds
No,
block?
yeah, sorry, I haven't been getting it. I mean, in the summer, obviously, I was when it was there, but no, in the winter, no. I mean, I thought I've been getting it because I thought it's been coming through because it's still daylight. But now you've cleared that point up that I haven't been getting UVA because of the cloud cover
and
in
that
where
and
we
that's going
are.
to make depression, because also it's part of making dopamine and serotonin. And
Right.
how I've like said that the problem with the UK is in the summer people miss the sunrise because of it being antisocial. So if you're doing the best you can with the light, you just move into other categories, like there's obviously water, magnetism to optimize. And then, like I've said, the breathing, people think it's just they know how to breathe, but a lot of people have cured many situations with breath patterns. And it's throughout all ancient traditions. And whether you look in Ayurveda or Chinese medicine or European medicine, or things like Wim Hof, or other kinds of breathing techniques, it's something that's free and everybody can do it by themselves at home. And then it's just a matter of learning. And then the same with the proper kinds of movements, that with limited mobility, that's why I mentioned very easy healing kinds of medicines, because we still have to move. And sure, people don't want to be going to the gym or doing Ashtanga yoga when they're not well, because it's not going to work. There's lots and lots of ways to tick the boxes there. But like I said, when I went through your question, there's nothing wrong with getting NDT, because yes, there are thyroid symptoms in there. So people can do what they want, and I'll give my views, but I'm not going to stop anybody from doing something or force them to do anything. They have to do it themselves. So I completely agree. If you want the NDT, I would definitely try it, because like everything, there's always like something might help you 20%, and then it allows you to do other things that you're not able to do at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. The HRV, the reason why I didn't sign up for that is because, I have a lot of stress at home. I'm constantly in fight or flight. I know that. So that's why I didn't sign up for it, because I thought, well, I can't, I'm not going to, I'm just in stress all the time, which obviously is adding to the situation with my thyroid. So I thought, well, is there any point of doing it at the moment when things are like this bad,
That's probably the best time of all to start meditation or breathing practice, because like I said, you've got a problem, and when we breathe back, when people are stressed, they do like chest breathing. So then they get tight pec minors, and then they start to get arm pains because they're getting sort of postural based tingling. So it's one of those things that sometimes doing the easiest possible thing at home that's pretty much free is the best, is also a good way to approach things. And then meditation, there's so much information on the internet and even in PubMed all about how meditation actually performs better than antidepressants. So that's kind of the best time to focus on these stress relieving activities, because you have to have time out to yourself where you can just not think about what's worrying you, and learn to be able to do basic things that's very helpful. And also, you can't possibly hurt yourself with heart math and I Thrive chakra and things like that. So that was my suggestion there.
I mean, I do meditation, and I do. You remember you told me to try is it called the relaxator, the breathing, the very basic breathing thing? Because I said I had trouble holding breath. So you suggested this relaxator that I bought, which is just like the plastic thing that you put in your mouth.
Yeah, that's for like getting the jaw and everything aligned. So it makes sure that when you do breathe, the biomechanics are optimized. But then there's
Yeah.
huge amounts of different sorts of breathe. I mean, everybody in the group could probably chime in with different breathing methods that they found really helpful, because it's also combining it with your HRV and your heart rate, because it gives feedback, or anything to do with bioneurofeedback. You can start to make adjustments because something's being measured.
So the HRV session that you did, and the I Thrive chakra. So I was talking about that specifically. I mean, I just thought that maybe, because I'm in a state of stress all the time, that it wouldn't, it's just going to be another layer of something that's going to be a stress for me at the moment. That's why, I sort of stayed away from that at the moment, because you can get overloaded with stuff. And I'm not looking at the difference between, if I've done a workout, how's my heart rate after this workout, as opposed to me having a long walk. I'm not at that level. I'm at the level of high stress and poor health. So that's why I've not done it. But if you think it would be,
when we do it, we just sit down and we don't do anything. And it's a bit like people who've got really bad backs and pain didn't want to come to my Pilates classes because they're in lots of pain. But that's the whole thing that's going to help a lot of people out of pain. So it's one of these things. It's just back to the original question, maybe just do one thing at a time and explore the NDT. But also this thing about this happens all the time with clients, that the thing they need to do is the thing they're afraid of, like having to move when people are in pain, whereas just not moving at all makes everything worse. So it's the same kind of psychology there, but also about the stress in the house. What is causing the stress?
Well, it's quite a personal thing,
Oh, no, you
really,
don't
but
have to say
it's just to do
publicly.
with my partner. He's having mental health problems.
Okay, well, that's like massive, because it depends what they
Yeah,
are. Because bipolar and schizophrenia type things are terrifying, or if people are being horrible because they can't help it, because hurt people hurt people. So this is
yeah.
where sometimes the issue is not the issue, because is he seeking out proper help for his mental health?
I'm trying to persuade him to. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's alcoholics now, so it's difficult.
Oh,
But I've not.
okay.
It's not just through this situation, though. I mean, I've been ill for quite a long time in terms of, well, poor health, and trying to get to a good level of health for a long time. I've had quite a lot of different traumas over the last 10 years, and it's just, I just feel that I'm not making a lot of progress in my energy. It's like, it's all like you say, it's a mitochondria thing. It's an energy. It's to do with my energy. I mean, I eat really good good nutrient dense food, and I have for years. And I don't
So
have any.
we could tick
So,
the
but I'm
food
getting the
box.
nutrients, but the nutrients aren't getting to my. I'm not. My body's not using them. I think is what's happening. So
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
thing. Sometimes if people have got not enough stomach acid, which is part of sort of adrenal issues, they don't absorb things. But also there's another layer to this. I won't go into it in detail about how the water geometry around every mineral or deuterium or toxin dictates whether your body pushes it out on its own or whether it absorbs it or not. And then also the other situation is that living in an environment with somebody in your partner situation creates all of the emotional side or that causes energy leaks. Because I would suggest going to get therapy for yourself and him, because like even someone like Dr. Ralph or someone that does a similar thing like EMDR, things like that, because it's not fair on you to have to live with that, because sometimes it's our environment, which means the people, that's making us unwell. And he needs to because alcoholism is very, very serious, and so is mental health situations, but he has his own problems. And then we've got the transference of the energy field because you're living in the same house as him. So sometimes that's why people are sick. And that's why Igna's question about German new medicine was so good, because it very strongly says we get physically ill from mental traumas. So there's loads going on here. So basically you're going to have to do something or some things that you haven't tried before or don't want to do, because sometimes what we don't want to do is the thing which we need to do.
yeah, no, I do understand that, and I do know about German new medicine, and I've spent a long time looking into mind body syndrome and that kind of thing. So I'm very aware that about energy leaks and stuff like that. It is exhausting, and it does sap my energy, and I try and put things in place whereby I keep a sort of a bubble around me to try to sort of deflect the negative energy, but I have struggled before I met him though as well. So this isn't a new thing just because of him, you see. So I've had since my late 40s, when I was obviously going to start in my menopause. I'm 59 now, but nobody was talking about it then, and I was having a hard time, and I just got thrown on antidepressants, and I'd never taken any meds in my life then, but I was mentally and physically
Oh,
very
do you still
poorly.
take the antidepressants?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
tapering off them very, very, very
is it
slowly.
sertraline? Because you have to be really careful about this, because they're not wishing to fearmonger, but they're very bad for the mitochondria. And it's already been published ages ago about the antidepressants and the mitochondria. So sertraline is very popular in the UK.
Yeah, it's
So,
not sertraline. They did put me on that at first, but I was so violently ill after a week that it got
oh yeah,
changed.
it makes people
It's
have very bad stomachs, and yeah.
Yeah, it was escitalopram. It's escitalopram.
Citalopram. Well, that's a very similar. That's still an SSRI.
Yeah, oh, it's
So,
an SSRI. Yeah, and I'm micro tapering that liquid a very small amount. My son was in it was critical in a car accident. It was when he was 12 a few years ago. So I'd come off it then, but I was in a very bad way, mentally and physically, after he came out of hospital. He had a brain injury, and so the doctor, no one knew what to do, so they put me back on it, and I just went along with it. And now I'm trying to come off that, so I'm constantly with tapering very, very minute amounts of escitalopram. So I've got that going on as well. So um but I mean, it will take years to it will take another year or so to come off it, because I'm doing it so slowly.
that's how you're supposed to do it. People either
Yeah,
do it by themselves, tapering, or they do it with their psychiatrist or doctor, who lots of them do actually want people to come off the meds, but they don't want people to do it suddenly. So
no,
yeah, there's lots of things. So yeah, so maybe yeah, if you're interested in the NDT, to try it, but also to maybe take on board some of the other ideas and anything that other people in the group have got to offer. But I definitely think this is not just your problem. You have men can be very difficult to get to seek help, but it seems like it's at a critical point, and it's it's not fair on you or your son, because I didn't know about your son and the brain injury because he got hit by a car.
yeah,
So sometimes people can try to do everything for themselves, but there's another person important that also requires fixing, because there's like family therapies that people can attend to, and he obviously desperately needs help, and it's not fair on you to take the burden.
No, that's right. But he was really there for me when my son had his accident. I don't think I'd be here now without him. He's a good person, but
All the more
energy
reason
wise,
to help him.
well,
Yeah.
I'm trying to, yeah, but it's at my expense of my energy and my chi. So yeah, I'm just just trying to put the pieces together the best way I can.
Yeah, definitely. Because it does, I agree about making the boundary, but also, like I've said, having supportive friends, that's really important as well. Because there's lots of times I've come across situations and people don't ever laugh and they don't have any friends, not through their fault of their own, because they've just downward spiraled. So there's also like a community side of things, of other people that can bring you out of bad places as well, because no matter what, somebody always knows something that you don't. Especially like I've found that it doesn't matter who somebody is, they always have got something to offer if you ask them the right question.
Absolutely. No, I totally do agree with you. I mean, my energy's so low that my friends, I don't end up meeting up with people too much and doing things because I just haven't got the energy. And then if anything happens anywhere near past 9 p.m., I just obviously don't entertain anything that does that. I tried that once just before Christmas, and I was just quite ill for a few days after it. I got, it was just one thing that I tried. I thought, I'm just going to sod it. I'm just going to do it. But um, I don't, my sleep's poor anyway. So something like that, I just, no,
I
I can't
completely
do
agree
it.
with you there. I don't like doing anything even like after 8 o'clock, but
Yeah.
for certain things that's important, I will do like twice a week. But then there are people who are around in the daytime that you can meet for coffee and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're metabolically flexible and you can do these things, then you can do it if you're in a position of, having a good metabolism and sleeping well. You can do these things now and then. But for me, it's not.
But also,
So
there are other people in the same situation as you, who don't have much energy. So it's about sometimes finding other people who don't want to do things late at night. So there's like all the interaction of other people, and also pets. They're really important, like animals, are a great solace for lots of
yeah,
people.
we do have a dog, and my partner looks after the dog. So the dog is a big part of my life. I'm very dogs are just for me like angels. So I totally understand where you're coming from on that, Sarah. I do, yeah.
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 So I think, just looping back to the original question, it's worth seeking out the NDT, because once people have got an idea in their head, they won't drop it. So I just let them see it through. But then, it may help a lot or it may help a bit. How can you know unless you try? And then it's just about rebuilding everything, making sure all the basic things are in place. And like I've said, I can't emphasize how important it is for your partner to get help, because you can't heal yourself and try and help another person. It's the whole put your own oxygen mask on before trying to put somebody
Yeah.
else's on, and things like that. So yeah, it is a difficult situation. So I think it's just do what you feel you've got the energy to do now, and then you'll have to take on board other basic things that are cheap and easy that we all agree on that works, like even manual therapies like massage and Bowen and all of those things,
Yeah.
to do. It's just finding stuff that's, if you're doing the best you can with the light stuff and you can't do any more, at least you're doing the best you can. But I still have to say, you need indoor UV lighting in the UK in winter, but you can buy even UVB bulbs for reptiles. It's not like a Sperti or anything. So it's just also, to not neglect the light. Even if people go and use a sunbed once a week that's got red light tubes in it, people I know here that get terrible depression at this time of the year, they go and do that. So it's just about finding things that are easy to do, that are local to you.
Do you mean a UVA bulb? Because I've got a red light panel. I've got
Oh
a
no,
one.
that's not
No,
UV.
but you mean an actual. So like the reptile lights, do they do UVA then, or
They do UVA and B, and then this thing I just
okay.
switched on here, that's a UVA, like a something like a 10 watt, and then all fly zappers are more powerful, and there you can buy them everywhere because my mum, uses one of those. So it's just about with people and the light thing, I have to know exactly what they're doing because there's always nuances. And luckily UVA you can buy for your house, and then UVB, there's all different scales of how strong do you want something, from a reptile lamp that's UVB all the way up to a chroma D lamp. So there's all different like scales of it. But if people's health nosedives in the winter and they don't know how to do the other side of like the regulating leptin, usually I'll guess that they're not getting enough UV because that's the thing that's missing in the winter. So I would just look into that because they're not difficult to find, and you can buy things. And if people use certain sunbeds in the UK because they have UVB in them, but you need to make sure it's got red tubes in as well and just not overuse it because obviously they've got side effects with overuse.
Okay, yeah. Right. I shall look into the UVA light then.
Yeah, because that's really important because we've had terrible cloud in the north of England for about 2 weeks now. So it's just
Yeah.
about always going back to the basics and double checking, and then remembering to go into other categories of things that we all agree on that helps, like breathing, meditation, and proper movement. Not people who are not trained in movement just doing stuff at home, to follow a proper program. So yeah, that's what I would suggest there, but also to look into something that some therapy you and your husband can have. Sorry, your partner.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So the UVA light then, how long would I just go try and go on that when it would be the normal UVA rise in this country? Like look at for the timing and try and use it then.
Yeah, so what I do is like you have to still go outside for the real UV because there's way more to outside than just light. So you get the natural full spectrum, but then with the UVB, that's a different topic. And then the UVA, I just use it as a supplementary light with alongside an incandescent. So that's what I would do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Seems well timed. Good. Oh yeah, somebody's not muted. Let me just make sure everybody's muted. Right. Okay, so just to answer the question about gravity and circadian rhythms. So what it is, gravity is a Zeitgeber or a timekeeper, but it also, gravity is so far the strongest theory for it is accelerated charge. So things like seeds, when they grow, they adjust themselves to orientate to gravity waves, and it makes a voltage. So this is how they germinate and suck in to grow. So when it comes to the question about the timing, it was in the 1970s. Professor Frank Brown Jr. He was in Illinois. He had some oysters shipped in from Long Island, 1,000 miles away. So this is before the SCN in the eye was discovered. So the oysters, they have their own kind of behaviors. That are in rhythm with the tide. So regardless of what the mood is, it still is going to influence gravity on this planet, as do other things that are here, like pyramids and things like that. So what he found that when the oysters were left for about 14 days, they changed when they opened and closed, because they're basically just looking for food when they do that. And they stabilized their circadian rhythm. And this was in a lab. So the light was all not very good, and they also the magnetism, the lab was upstairs. So what he then did was analyze the passage of the moon over Illinois. So he was able to correlate the moon position with Long Island and in Illinois to prove that the oysters had changed their rhythm, and it had to be something that wasn't light and it wasn't magnetism, or something inside the oysters, because plants and things do have a sort of circadian clock of their own, which is separate separate again from light. So that was how gravity being actually the first Zeitgeber to be discovered, not the light. So without going too much into the physics, with gravity waves and a lot to do with longitudinal waves, what we have is the vortex or the cone, because everything is made of vortices, depending on, you know, whether you look at modern sort of physicists or the ancients. So what happens is the charge waves, the up and down wave goes in and it goes down the golden ratio vortex cone, and then longitudinal waves or accelerated charge come out. And this is the current theory. And Dan Winter hasn't been proved wrong with this. So this is where we've got an up and down wave changing into a longitudinal wave. And number one, we know that biology uses longitudinal waves for communication. All of our tech is transverse waves up and down. So maybe the gravity is signaling in us and oysters and everything else what kind of time it is based on the planetary orbits, because the gravity is going to be slightly different. So it might be using the longitudinal wave. Also, with this vortex cone, it's not actually, it can have different angles. So 60 degrees is what the vortex cone Dan Winter describes, because then this creates a propulsion force or pushing force in a given direction. So this vortex cone, the angle of it can slightly adjust depending on where something is on the planet and what other planets are doing. Then I said at the beginning that if we're talking about a vortex cone, it's going to be making a voltage, and anything in biology is bioelectronic. So any changes in the gravitational voltage that's produced, it's going to propagate some kind of signal in the organism, which is going to give it information, like telling a seed it's time to germinate, because lots of seeds and things do it, not just on temperature, but times of year as well. Then in terms of like this voltage, the SCN is like an oscillating signal all the way down the body, but the way that the gravity possibly could keep time could be a slightly different biological mechanism. So there are ways in which we can consider how gravity can also be a Zeitgeber, because all of the planets, like I said, all have particular orbit times or years or whatever, and then the moon, whatever it is, still influences gravitational fields on this planet. When we look back into the ancients or alchemy and things like that, there was often specific days of the week or times in a moon cycle when certain chemical reactions or plant extractions or whatever should be done, because they often knew something worked empirically, but they didn't know the theory. They just discovered that something, oh, it's best to do this at a full moon, but they didn't know why or what the moon was, or they didn't know anything about atoms or waves. So yeah, it's definitely like a valid Zeitgeber scientifically, but then modern theory can start to explain, oh, well, how exactly does gravity affect these organisms? And also when it comes to gravity and magnetism and electric currents and everything all over the planet, it's never exactly the same anywhere anyway. So gravity is not like masses attracting or repelling each other. It's something much more complicated, because for ages nobody knew what gravity was, and neither did Einstein. So the jury's still open of exactly what it is, but it's like lots of things. It's probably not something we think it is, but there's ways in which we can think, how does biology work, which is electricity and voltage potential and current flow, and then think, oh yeah, this is a plausible method, and then look at all kinds of other things which sort of use gravity. So that was kind of a brief overview of it. So gravity is definitely something that I'd like to understand more, and a lot of people don't know what it is or have never even thought about it. So hopefully that helps with that question. Right, okay. So while we're all still here, does anybody have a particular question or anything they want to ask, or share some information, or chip in on helping Linda, or giving Ignis some examples of German new medicine and how it helped or didn't help? Or does anybody take NDT? I think there's some probably people in the group that do. It's very easy to get in the United States. The UK, that's a different problem. No, no. Okay, so these are really good questions and probably deserve their own mini post in the Facebook group anyway, because like everything, I want to encourage people to bring information to the group as well, because obviously I don't know everything. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So these are all very relevant questions that I'm pretty sure everybody in the group can help with as well, because that's the point. So I can always post it, but I think people like it better if the person with a question posts it. So Ignis could just ask, has anybody tried German new medicine? What did it do? Linda can ask in the group, has anybody, what do you think about NDT? And then the whole gravity thing, that's kind of a whole like big physics topic. But the take-home message from gravity is it's not what you think it is. We think we know everything. Oh, I definitely don't. Like it's something I think people on the internet that troll think they do, but they're usually broke and sick and a recluse. So what do they know? And then the moment you think you know everything, that's when it'll all go wrong. Like the pride comes before a fall. But everybody's got valuable information. Natural desiccated thyroid. So it's basically not just chemical thyroid, it's crushed up thyroid. So you get the T1, 2 as well, and probably other things that we don't really know about yet that lives in a thyroid gland that does something in a very tiny amount. So it's much more natural than taking a chemically Laura takes NDC. So yeah, if we restart the NDT discussion in the group, because I don't take anything, so I can't really advise. But then if I did have to take thyroid medicine, I would choose that if that's any help. And then there are people who've tried lots of different thyroid meds. So so yes, it's something where other people's input of experience is going to be really helpful for these questions. I just saw Laura.
Sarah, I could just share that. Gosh, it was probably 8 or 9 years ago. I tried to convert from Synthroid to desiccated thyroid or NDT, and it didn't work. I went down, like I was exhausted, and like it wasn't working. But it's interesting, when I took the applied quantum biology course and started doing a lot of the quantum health practices, we tried it again and it was seamless. I transferred over and it's worked really well. So it was really, I don't know if, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions why.
Oh, no, this is a really important point, because loads of people have a terrible time with HRT or other medication. And as soon as they do the quantum and put the body clock and all of the biology running coherently, it's much more receptive to be assisted with medication. Whereas before it just rejects it because it's got so many other problems to deal with. It can't deal with you adding more stuff in on top of a massively messed up body clock or really low redox. And I think also with any kind of medication or supplement, the liver has to detox it. So if all the body's low on energy and the clocks are terrible, it just gets stressed out. Even if potentially that supplement or medicine could help, it just can't deal with it right now. So that was really helpful to know.
I have another question. It's kind of related, I guess, but I know last year Stacy Sims came out with her studies. She's an exercise physiologist, that the cold therapy wasn't like cold plunging was actually, it almost sounded like it was more challenging for women on their bodies. And so I think a lot of people walked away from doing cold therapy. And I just heard there's a new study from Lauren Hoff. I don't know if she's Wim Hof's daughter.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at it, and they're showing that it's really beneficial for women.
Oh yeah, Tom Seeger, when he did the podcast with me, he completely on purpose wanted to clear up all this nonsense about Yeah,
Okay.
so it's like a really good podcast. It's probably one of Tom Seeger's best ever performances. So I went through everything
Okay.
and we asked,
Got it.
because he's very in touch with the data. So this whole idea of people trying to tell women that we're some kind of different species and cold therapy, we mustn't do
Mhm.
it. Yeah, I wouldn't do it on the middle of a period, but then some people do by accident. So yeah, and there's also people just staying warm all the time and not doing cold makes thyroid issues worse because you're just
Mhm.
reinforcing the negative feedback loop. So
Mhm.
I'm sure all the women went out gathering in the cold when the men hunted, and they probably hunted also, or they had to sit in the cave and be cold, or wash in the lake. So yeah, there's just loads of like rubbish that people produce to push their own narrative, and you have to just go back to the science. And even on Huberman, there's lots about women and cold plunging as well.
Mhm. Oh, I'm so glad you said that because I was really active the last 4 or 5 years doing a lot of like river plunging. And then this, I don't know, I think she got in my head maybe. And then I also hit menopause. And so I, was concerned, oh, am I taxing my adrenals when they're trying to take on the load from my
No,
ovaries?
no, it doesn't work like that. If people have, it normalizes cortisol, not, and even if it does spike it temporarily, it all goes back to normal. Tom covered this in massive detail in the podcast because I'm just sick of like the bullshitting
Yeah.
and scaring people. And then for menopause, because women, we can make testosterone of the same level all our lives, that doing TRT for women is difficult and men. So it's just another way to boost one of our hormones
Okay.
and things like that. And also people need to get stressed out a little bit all the time because otherwise we live in a comfort zone.
Hmm.
So also I'd go insane and be really sick in the UK if I didn't know how to use the cold. So I just think it's basically bullshit. So that's fine. Obviously, some people are just stupid and they're sick and they try and do an ice bath for half an hour. That's obviously silly. Tom just
Yeah.
says 4 minutes at
Yeah.
kind of one is fine. So he's
Okay.
the person to ask because it's his whole life, and he does all the research and reads the papers, and he has lots of sort of anecdotal data as well.
And working with people with cancers as well, right?
Oh yeah, that's like yeah, and even Naisha Winter, I've known her quite a long time. There's
Mhm.
bona fide a standard hypothermia, very good treatment for cancer. And it's the same of people trying to tell people, oh, exercise is bad for you. I'm like, yeah, whatever, just go and, whatever. So it's stuff like that. But also in the northern hemispheres, what have we got apart from the cold and the dark? So we have to learn to use them because if it was that dangerous, our ancestors would have died. We wouldn't be here because we've got different physiology to people who with L1 haplotypes because they just stay at the equator and live there. So why would they need to be cold adapted? They've got different ways of surviving.
Sarah, my doctor's testing my hormones and my estrogen now has dropped. So she's encouraging bioidentical and progesterone. Do you have thoughts?
What's your genetics? Because some people have got particular genetics like COMT and CYP, where it would be a disaster to take an exogenous estrogen.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
that.
would find out those first because this is why there's the problem.
Okay.
And also this whole thing, the same with Linda, I nearly exploded when she said, not her, as her doctor, oh, I was put on this. It's like everybody's got the right to say, actually, I don't want that because I don't want to take that. You don't have to do, what these so-called experts tell you, because in Canada and the US, people get a payout every time they write a prescription. So it's not always for the benefit of the patient. But I said right at the beginning of the podcast that Western medicine has value and it definitely works, but it's got big caveats also. So combining and also the thing about the genetics, that's one that also ties back into the German new medicine, but it makes sense because we didn't have any estrogel, 500 years ago. So it's a whole, and then people like Naisha Winter are worth talking to about hormone replacement because she had cancer when she was 19. So she'll fiercely say, be really careful of HRT. But of course, there are women who who need it. So it's a case by case. But I would look at the genetics, because if you've got a slow COMT and a CYP issue, you're going to make toxic estrogens out of estrogen, and you're not going to metabolize it properly. So the dosages, who knows? So that's what I would do there.
Okay.
Yeah, and also just follow the money, because some with progesterone, it's not a prescription medication, so you can just buy it yourself, and it's not expensive at all. We can get it easily here, and so there's other ways to look. There's other kind of routes to look into. So I'm not against HRT. I just think you have to, like exactly as you said, lots of people find they do the quantum or breathing or all sorts of other basic things they're not doing, and find, oh, actually, I feel fine now. I'm not going to bother with it. And some people have a horrible time and do need a little bit, but they need to do all the other things, because we can't just take stuff and expect it to fix everything. But then sometimes it does help if somebody does actually need the thing.
And even like, you probably know a lot more about this. Sorry, my phone's ringing. Just hot flashes and blood sugar. That's the one little relationship I'm correlating. Like if I'm eating fruit at a season, I'm noticing lately that I'll feel a hot flash, with just, or eating if I eat a dessert, for example, it's like, oh, I'm going to have a brutal night.
Oh yeah, but we get more insulin resistant as we get older, because it's just part of the
True.
yeah. So and also nitric oxide and HRV correlate with insulin. So I did make a free blood sugar thing that doesn't talk about food, and there's studies showing that HRV, like low HRV, correlates with worse blood sugar control. And then it's all back to when people are younger, like Linda said, about when you're metabolically flexible and have higher redox, you can tolerate things better. Whereas I found the more I've got older, I have to just remove things, because I'll occasionally eat stuff I shouldn't, but then I think I know too much about it, that it's not so, we just tolerate things less as we get older. Like Linda pointed out about doing things past 9 o'clock. Well, when we're in our 20s, we do everything past 9 o'clock. So it's just about, we are going to over time just become less negentropic and more chaotic. So we've got less wiggle room with things. But I also agree with something that Ignace and I talked about ages ago about philosopher's stone and people living until they're 300. And Professor Lung's also obsessed with this. So no matter what, there's always something. There's always other methods, but those kind of things are going to be in the ancient traditions. So I'm always looking for things to do, because, yeah, sure, nobody's immortal, but I think David Schmidt's also right that humans probably did live until they were 300 at some point. So that there's stuff out there, but I'm pretty sure it's not in the anti-aging, like shill stuff of stuff that people sell. So it's always really weird things that come from ancient traditions. I won't even go into where all of these ancient documents come from. So yeah, there's no matter what, there's always more.
Well, there seems to be a push in the States right now for, like, the government is now saying that, bioidentical hormone therapy, it's coming from the FDA, I think. Have you heard this in the news just recently?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's just all back to making customers. And another one of my obsessions that people know about is tormenting the poor American people and making them sick. It's like some kind of horrible experiment. And then they're very isolated from other people, because some people have never left America. They don't know about other cultures. No disrespect, lots of people do. And they live in this bubble of America and they don't realize, and they're just sitting ducks to be preyed on. And it really disgusts me. That's the same as the statin bollocks in the UK. Oh, everybody has to go on statins. Oh, quick, let's put them all on statins before the patent runs out, and then we can't make any more money. So a lot of people have just completely lost faith in stuff the government says. I mean, lockdown began it, but people were already doing the opposite. So when it comes to these, let's put everybody on medication, or let's put fluoride in everybody's water, that's when I start to just think, what are you doing to these poor people? And it's something, it makes me so so upset and angry I can't even express it, because they're just kind, nice people that just don't know anything because they've been sort of forced into a bubble. And stuff like that. But like everything, there's always people that can benefit from hormone replacement. But the question is, why have they got osteoporosis in the first place? Because Professor Lung's work massively emphasizes on bone building naturally with particular microfractures. Ignace and I have talked about this, which sounds kind of dangerous, but that's just how bones work, and bones grow with Wolff's law, and you can grow bone at any age. That's the whole point of some of these very more bizarre movement methods, which have been handed down over 10,000 or 6,000 or 1,000 years. And then they're obviously frowned on by modern thinkers because they just want people to buy their chemicals and take them.
Sorry, Sara, I missed Ignace. Who is that Professor Lund?
Oh no, Ignace is a dentist in the group who asks good questions. Okay. So we sometimes have our own discussions about things like the Philosopher's Stone or just all sorts of things, because he's very curious to learn. And Professor Lung, he's 73, he's like Chinese. I work now with research. So he again is there's only one Professor Lung. He is coming on the podcast soon. It's just it's one of these things. People will he only wants to train or work with the 0.1%. So he has his own ways to drive away people who he thinks going to waste his time, and he'll be very helpful to those who, once they've passed all his tests. And I respect that, because what he's got to offer is amazing. And he's just got his whole course verified as a university degree after 30 years of being laughed at and criticized. So he won in the end. So he's obviously got something important to pass on before he kicks the bucket, as he says. But he is very strict. But he used to be a Shaolin monk, so he does know an awful lot of stuff. And then he went back to university to get a medical qualification when he was in his 40s. So, but it's all about, like me, I don't think there's anything East v West. I think it should be East plus West. So Professor Lung and I share our ideas, because I really want to learn about Chinese culture and all the stuff that's offered there. And there's lots of hidden science in Russia as well. It's just because of language and cultural barriers caused by politicians that sometimes the information is not shared, or it's just because the language. Because Professor Lung's had to try and translate traditional ancient Chinese into ordinary Chinese, and also then find English words to explain all of this. So yeah, he's an interesting person. His favorite one is people doing acupuncture wrong, because we in the West use the needles that are too small and far too many. And that's why the Cochrane report on acupuncture was shit, because it was stupid people that did it wrong. And that's damaged the whole reputation of acupuncture. But then his mission is just to teach people how it should be done, and not let people he calls make chop sueys and just ruin traditions for everybody. So it's kind of question everything, as we say. Oh, actually, Linda, that's a good idea. Acupuncture is really helpful, but as long as it's the right kind, that's an easy thing. Lots of people like that. And that's why it can be a bit hit and miss with acupuncture, because you might get a Chinese person, or you might get somebody that's invented their own version.
I have had acupuncture in the past with with TCM years ago, but I don't think, it didn't really work for me at the time. It was a Chinese practitioner that had been here, doing it for 20 years. But I'm not saying there wasn't any value in it. I think I just wasn't in the right headspace at the time to receive what was being offered, because it was very close to, a lot of trauma and stuff. So, but yeah, I have had it, and I have had it EMDR as well a few years ago. So. Yeah, I am open to these things. Yeah.
I'm also massively about the energy of the therapist. Like I said right at the beginning, that you can have a really good dentist or a terrible one, but they both went and got the same training and work in the same building. Same with any kind of like hypnotist or any kind of therapist, sometimes it's the therapist, not the technique. And like you say, sometimes it's just not the right time, or somebody was already not well or in a bad mood, or just didn't want to go, or something in the room upset them. So there's just like, I always give everything a second chance, and different practitioners and things like that. And there's also lots of fake Chinese masters here, and that's one of Professor Lung's massive bugbears, is exposing all of those to make sure people do it properly. So it's
I agree. I think you're so right about the therapist. I mean, I've tried so many different avenues, and you know, that is the main. Without that as the linchpin underneath everything, you have to feel that chime with the therapist, and you have to feel like they're in the right headspace, and they can hold the space for you, and yeah, it's the fundamental. So yeah,
that's really important, because lots of therapists I know are completely insane, and they're so messed up from collecting dirty energy from treating too many people and not looking after themselves, because they're very giving and they're often an empath, that they are like a dirty channel. So they're not technically bad or a bad person, they just are very bad at clearing off energy or whatever from all of the other patients. Even Professor Lung goes on about this all the time, about when he got greedy once and saw too many patients and then made himself really ill. So you have to, and some like therapists are really, really, all they want to do is heal, and they forget about themselves. So they by accident affect their own patients. And then also sometimes there's a lot of value of going on a training course and just be repeatedly hypnotized over and over again by people who are learning but are being supervised, just to get a huge amount of volume in, rather than paying like £100 for one session. You can pay for a course, and even if people are just learning, there's always going to be naturally good people, and sometimes the person teaching uses people as a demo, so they just get repeatedly hypnotized or whatever the thing they're learning over and over, so they get a gigantic treatment, and that can really shift the needle as well, just because it's just so much. And people can't hurt themselves going into spontaneous, or that's Professor Lung's other side of things, or hypnosis, because you're only tapping into your own body's healing. So there's the volume like equation of just enough of something, because some people do everything right, they just don't do enough of it. And that's why it's not working, because it's not what they're doing, it's just the volume or the frequency is not sufficient. So yes, there's all kinds of like things that, and also Linda, you're not that far away from me, so in that situation I definitely would help you and your husband, because I do I prefer men by far as clients for lots of reasons, and especially hypnosis or trauma stuff, because they can be difficult. They won't go thinking it's going to be, they think it's something that it's not. And also a lot of my male clients were men going to prison or coming from prison, so it's not like I've not seen all sorts of interesting colourful characters, and they all found like a lot of benefit, because I wasn't what they were expecting. So it's like it's things like that.
That's very interesting, Sarah. Yeah, I mean, is that on your website about those sessions, or?
Yeah, I haven't been able to do them for ages, just because I have an internet business now. But then there's certain times, like old clients who've got back in touch with me, that I'll go and see. And then sometimes if somebody is not very far away from me, it's like, well, they might as well make the journey. But also with treating people, I'll only treat people that came of their own accord. So with your husband, or sorry, partner, it's something that he has to come to the breaking point where he accepts, I need help and I really want it.
Yeah, I think he's close to that. I think it's just he's not spiritual. I'm kind of spiritual, and I'm very open-minded in terms of looking elsewhere for fresh thought and fresh ideas, and he's very traditional, sort of. There's the AA and there's the doctor and that kind of
the
thing.
AA is brilliant. The AA is spiritual.
He won't do that though, because there's too much God talk in it. So he won't do, I've talked to him about, higher powers and stuff like that, but he's just not wanting to go down any of that kind of road. Whereas I'm total opposite. But he he isn't. So
my answer to those people is always whatever you're doing isn't working, so you need to
exactly.
try something else. And also, one of the doctors that founded AA was an atheist. And also, I think there are all groups are different. That some of them do all the principles, but kind of don't focus so much on the God or the whatever they call it, because they aren't actually Christians. They're something else, but it's still source or whatever. And all groups are different because the group develops itself. But AA gets really good results. And I think Russell Brand wrote a whole book about the 10-step, but in his words, and it's actually a really good book, as good as the AA. So, and also, lots of the men I worked with going to prison and coming from prison, some of them were alcoholics, and they really, really liked AA, and it helped them as well. So they went in thinking, oh no, what this is going to be something, and it wasn't what they thought it was. But there's plenty of different kinds of like spiritualities and things to kind of pursue, and it doesn't have to have a God in it. So
I've tried with him, I said, look, when you hear the word God, just substitute life force, because everything has a life force. But he's just not, he's kind of very different to me in that respect. So
but also he must have had a bad experience with religion, because that's the other thing to understand. When somebody has a fierce reaction to something and explodes, there's always another reason underneath of something that happened that made them be like that.
Possibly. I mean, not that I know of, but he's just a very sort of pragmatic kind of black and white person. He's like he's just quite, he doesn't, it's just, there's no in-betweens with him. There doesn't seem to be much, his mind's not flexible in terms of, asking bigger questions and that kind of thing. He's just like, we're here, we exist, we die,
That's a great recipe that's a great recipe for depression. And he's basically he basically is the prime example of what happens of when you have that attitude of, there's nothing else, and we're just a lump of meat that's going to become compost. Like my cousin's like that, and she's always complaining about depression and anxiety. So it's like, well, if you want to have that paradigm and think you're just a thing that's going to be compost, then of course you've got no purpose. So there's. But the thing is, this isn't another example of where psychedelics can be really helpful, because it forces people into a different mindset. And there's massive success with psychedelics and addiction and PTSD. And I'm not a fan of people just taking them partying when they're 20, but I think they've got massive uses medicinally, and there's loads of studies on it as well. And it's whether it's psilocybin or LSD or ayahuasca or MDMA, people have been using it therapeutically since the 1950s. Until obviously the rave scene spoilt it for everybody, but they're very valid treatments, and there's still clinical trials going on for people. So those kind of people end up having a spiritual experience that's forced by those kind of plants, which can be really helpful. But also, just on another note, I know lots of people have told me they had this great vision of something on psilocybin, like someone I knew in this business, and he kept going on about his vision, and the whole business flopped. So I was like, well, there you go, it was lying to you, and you were using it for the wrong purpose, because things like that do mess with people and lie to them, but they are really good for making people shift mindset into a mindset they can't access naturally, because people like you and me can access other states ourselves, or we just will try anything and see what happens. Whereas your partner, that would be a really good candidate for psychedelics, because they are very good for hardcore smokers and people really struggling with addictions.
He would probably try that, because he did party a lot with MDMA and that kind of thing in his early life. So did I, so and acid and stuff like that. We've both done that kind of thing many years ago. So whereas I wouldn't go near it now because I'm too fragile, but he would. That's the kind of thing he would give a shout to. But
you also need therapist mediated version, not just getting high on your own. But on the other hand, sometimes I think if people need a babysitter to take psychedelics, they shouldn't be taking it. But then with trained therapists, they can, sort of guide the situation. So Also, sometimes if was he more open-minded when he was younger?
I didn't know him then. I've only known him for like 5, 6 years, but he's kind of traditional, and just did a lot of partying. It was all around like when it's like 86 to 80, 88, 89,
Oh
90.
yes, the peak of the
It was the
MDMA.
peak of
Yes.
it, and so we were both, we didn't really know each other then, but we were both like hell for leather in all that, and did a lot of drug taking and stuff like that.
But so
Yeah,
did lots of people, and they all were fine now. I
yeah,
think.
some fell by the wayside.
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen a lot of people fall by the wayside with different drugs over the years, but yeah, still here to tell the tale. So
I think that's the case. I think a lot of it is it's just something people do when they're younger. And if you're still doing it like raving at 40, you've got a problem. But then people still every now and again will take something. Even probably my mum would just, but then I think
yeah,
it's one of those things that some people like I just don't want to because I'm too busy and I've tried it all and I think it's very interesting and useful, but I just haven't got time for it now. But I'm not against it. I just am against people abusing it and spoiling it for everybody else.
mm.
So, or making like cutting it and hurting people, or believing the trip and then doing stupid things like starting businesses that flop and then so there's
I've got friends in their like your late 50s, early 60s, late 60s that still go out and party, and they still do, they still do coke and they still do all that, and they'd stay up all night, and they're more or less okay. They sleep all day and they're like happy and they're fine, and they might have a few health problems, but there are a lot of older people that still party around here, and God knows how they do it.
But also that's back to the community and having fun. That if people can't have fun, then they also get very miserable. So, but also if people can afford to sleep in the day, but also with stuff like that, then all of a sudden somebody has a heart attack when they were 60, and people mix cocaine with alcohol, which makes a really dangerous cocoa ethanol compound that's really horrible. So but
Yeah,
also,
no, I
some
mean,
people actually don't give a shit. They want to enjoy everything now, and they want to die early before they end up in a nursing home. So I can understand that side of it as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yep.
those kind of people, if something horrible happens, they just say, well, it's my own fault. So they don't blame anybody, because that's the whole other thing about thinking, oh, well, I chose this and I want to keep partying. And if I die, then I chose it. So that's people do it here as well. And that's fine. And yes, I agree with you that, they are happy enough. And, you know, my neighbor who's 73 does that, or 75 or something. So that's fine. He's still here, but he's on benefits. So he can lie in bed if he wants, but
Yeah.
he's quite a mad old man with a dog that he speaks to everybody on the dog walk and we all look after him. So,
Mm.
but he's like a totally harmless soul that does that and nobody minds. I mean, people don't like it when he buys drugs in the street and we can all see out of the window, but then it's
Yeah.
like, whatever. That's Leeds,
Yeah.
Leeds and
Yeah.
Manchester for you.
It is. Absolutely.
Yes. Anyway, I've got to go because it's like as usual with the lives. I think, oh, there's only 4 questions. It'll be really quick, and then we end up getting like really deep and having big, massive discussions. But thank you for coming on, and of course, I'll always do what I can to help you because I know you try really hard to do things best. But like, I can't emphasize how much the partner's a massive problem, and I really feel
Mm.
for your son. But then with him,
Yeah.
he just has to if he wants to play computer games in the night, it's like with people like that, they have their own joy and they have a different life to us. So we can't understand. So with people like that, you just think, oh, well, if it makes them happy, they have a really difficult situation. So let them be happy and
That's right.
try not to worry about like what it might be doing to them because they're enjoying it and they have a right to enjoy what they enjoy.
Well, I've got him to be, getting to sleep now for about 11:15 because I've been drumming into him circadian rhythm and growth hormone. I've been, he's sick of me talking about it. So I've had some success there. He's a good lad, and usually got his light out by about 11:15, which for a nearly 17-year-old is quite something these days. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's really with him. It's always like I always for people like that. Sure, they do lots of things I wouldn't do, but you just want to try and make them have a quality of life, so they can still have some joy as well. But yeah, he does sound like a good person. But he's only 17,
yeah.
so he's got a lot. He's got. You've given him a good start, and even with him, somebody who tries really hard with circadian rhythm, there is sort of like exogenous growth hormone that people sometimes use, and it always works better if the whole body's working better. Not that I'm advocating it, but it's something that would be available for him if he sorted out, if he had to, because I remember you said he was worried about being the smallest in the class, but it depends on how small, because I think the growth hormone is more for people who are sort of borderline. I'm not even sure the word we're allowed to say, a small person.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, but it's kind of worked a bit anyway, so I'll just take the win.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, you're doing a really good job, because it's hard for you to try and look after those two men, because that's the other thing. It's like, as much as we're annoying women, we kind of are better at nurturing things.
Absolutely.
As long as we're allowed to nag the men as well. But we do it because we care, not because we're being annoying. So
yeah, I'm switching all the lights off and the incandescent bulbs and all that. Obviously, that goes down like a lead balloon. But
or a dog shit sandwich.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's the problem. Men are just we're more sensitive to light than men are. So it's just because of our skin and our collagen and our eyes are different. But then that's always been the case of women getting pissed off at men about like light, even before the whole blue light thing. So, that's just we're different species.
Absolutely,
sometimes.
I know. Yeah. Well, it's been very nice to talk to you, Sarah.
Likewise,
anyway.
you've made a good live discussion, which is fun, because it is nice to talk to people when I can see them. So yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. I've got to go, because got like stuff to do, as we all do. So anyway, nice to see you, Laura.
You too,
thank you
Sarah.
for sharing, and thank you for sharing the NDT thing. I think that's the best answer for Linda, so we can see what happens
cross our fingers she has the same.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Good luck, Linda.
Yes, good luck. And also, yeah, like I said, the NDT is the best one, and you can get it in Britain. It can just be a nuisance, but definitely with all the stuff you showed me, the doctor's going to accept you straight away as a candidate.
Yeah. I know Dr. Myhill sells Metavive on her website.
Oh yeah, go to Dr. Myhill, yes, because she's
Yeah.
a big character all of her own, and she likes she's like, I did have to laugh. She wrote a whole book on thyroid, but takes thyroid medication. So some of her stuff's right and some of it isn't, but she's really helpful and she's a good person. So yes.
I've got that book actually, The Underactive Thyroid, Do It Yourself Because Your Doctor Won't. Is it that one?
It could be, but then like
Yeah.
I didn't say anything on the podcast because she has been on my channel and I knew she was on thyroid meds, but because I don't like being rude to people, I didn't say anything. Lots of people wrote nasty things in the comments about that, so I just deleted them all. So, it's just something that she doesn't understand light and water and stuff, but she knows a lot, anything to do with stuff like that. She's the British doctor to go to. I don't think she's got a license anymore though, because
she hasn't. No, I first came across her when I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue about 13 years ago, and she was quite niche then. Not many people knew about her that much. Now on Instagram and everything, she's very popular everywhere. But I mean, she advocates really high doses of vitamin D and vitamin C, doesn't she? And paleo ketogenic. And I just don't think I can't really.
Yeah, just be really careful with heavy ketogenic diets, and also anybody that brings a great big supplement list, because there is another doctor, I'm not going to mention any names, who people go to, and he's bankrupted people by all of the supplements he puts them on. And so to me, they all come from the same factory in Indiana, the supplements and the drugs. drugs. So it's somebody else is laughing their way to the bank. But like supplements and things, people just they are called supplements because they can help, but people get in the right mess with them. But there's nothing wrong with them. It's just a whole other biochemistry that I think you need a degree in to even start to understand supplements.
Sarah,
So,
speaking of supplements, I know you got to go. Just really quickly, Morley Robbins, with his root cause protocol, there's quite a lot of supplements. So I actually went down the rabbit hole and I've, got a lot of them. Have you tried? Do you think
no,
that's too
I
many?
sometimes take copper, but other than that, like I don't disagree with Morley, but then I went on my own mission to understand iron myself. So with him, like, yes, it's interesting, but it's like a lot of stuff, like I'll accept everybody's view and do my own research, and there's lots of things missing. But I don't think there's anything wrong with a copper supplement that's because it's kind of rare. It can be rare and people take so much zinc that they need to balance it. But then he's really anti vitamin C, like ascorbic acid and vitamin D supplements and stuff like that.
There's also, you can get copper sulfate and put it in. I've been putting it in coconut oil and just putting a little bit on my skin. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah,
that
that's
gets
been
through.
around for ages. That's an anti-fungicide, and we used to do that in school. When you used to grow crystals in a like a big blue thing. So yeah, and copper sulfate, isn't that used in organic farming on the soil? And it's one of those things which is a loophole that you can spray copper sulfate all over crops and still not say you've sprayed it. So yeah.
Okay. I know the book Copper Revolution, Jason Hummel, who wrote it, he's big on saying, don't waste your money on copper, supplements. Just do it, order some. It's so cheap to get copper sulfate, and you just use such a tiny amount. You could share it with everybody you know.
Yeah, it's a bit like a magnesium sulfate. You could probably make a blue bath and sit in it and you'd absorb it through the skin. So
True.
yeah, that would work as well. And I always put iodine like in the so like with everything, like Morley thinks copper rules the world, and as soon as you start thinking something's one thing, then you can't be right, especially if it's a chemical. And copper and minerals, the more I get deep into the physics, the more I realize actually I don't know anything about minerals, because the water structure around the mineral dictates whether we absorb it or it passes through, including deuterium. So that's why people can have wildly different reactions to minerals and heavy metals, because their water in their body has got a different coherence. So there's all because that's the thing. People focus too much on the thing, not the water, people think the baby is like everything and forget the bath water. So
Okay, sorry, I didn't want you to go down too deep of a rabbit hole with that one, but that helps because I was really strict for about 3 months, and then I went on a trip, and then I'm not taking all these, and now I'm kind of got supplement fatigue, and I know there's deuterium in some of the supplements too, so it's like I don't know, do I really need all those things? And I actually got my first two colds, which makes me wonder, am I taking too much copper and not enough zinc? I don't know if
I don't know.
why did I get
I don't know.
sick?
As people know, my degree was in biochemistry, and like I think it's it's like it's part of everything, but people still live in a biochemistry paradigm, especially as the body does everything biological does alchemy, so it changes one mineral to another because all the periodic table is wrong of how it works. Like the experiment with chickens and the egg shell, where they gave chickens no calcium, yet they had all the other minerals. So somehow inside the chicken, it did alchemical transmutation and made calcium because the eggshells were all right. And that's the whole thing about biology and mushrooms and fungi and all of these. They do stuff that we don't understand. And even if you ferment or make kefir, or which is doing alchemy, it produce more chemicals come out of it, more compounds come out. So negentropy, and the earth also is constantly making new, like gold and silver itself, because why are all of the gold mines and why is there only minerals in certain places on the planet? So there's all sorts of weird things that biology does that we don't understand, including doing its own chemical reactions and making something out of nothing, or turning one element into another. So
Okay.
But that's the thing, like I always try everything. And it's also a lot. Sometimes you have to stop everything and see what happens. Like people used to say to me, oh, Pilates doesn't do anything. And like, okay, well, don't come then. Then they'd be back then. It was, oh, my back's so sore, my shoulder's hurting, and on and there. So, it's like, and then sometimes if people are on 25 supplements, get rid of them all. If you feel rubbish, introduce each one back one at a time, and you'll find the 3 that were actually doing something. And then also the liver gets upset if you just give it too much to do, because it's kind of not used to all that. So
we were actually supposed to have Catherine Arnston on our podcast, and she canceled at the last second in late December. And so I've ordered her do you know her energy bits, the chlorella and spirulina? No.
Oh, aren't they quite dirty?
Well, they're supposed to be clean because they're done. They're done in Taiwan in these glass tubes. They're supposed to be pure. But no, I just wanted to curious if you knew anything about them.
No, I don't. I've kind of lived in my own world, and I've just more want to focus on people to do things like Professor Lung's exercises, because it's like there's only so far you can go taking stuff. So yeah, I don't know.
She considers it food, like it's not a supplement because it's literally just pressed. The algae is just pressed together.
But also, how would humans, like our ancient people, collect enough algae and also there's lots of, I don't know, I think it's something that, people that take chlorophyll, I sometimes think, well, that's the plant's blood, not ours. I'm not against it, but it's just like, chlorophyll and hemoglobin are similar, but one's a more evolved version of the other. So why would I want to take the more primitive version? So yeah, it's all, I don't know. I'm not against supplements. It's just I have to know everything about them and understand the whole process. And and lots of people get very excited at the marketing of something, so they feel better because they thought they would, so therefore they did.
Yeah, she's got lovely marketing for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I love how you challenge my brain.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like but the thing is, it's something you have to also prove it. Like, if I want to not do things or take supplements, I have to prove that I've not like aged 500 years in like 1 year. So it's all about I don't know, people just have their paradigms shift, and it's something that after learning alchemy and things, I realize I don't really understand anything. And each molecule has like got a personality, and it depends how you make it and when. So I don't know, but there are still people on the planet that know how to make very good things, but they're usually people who are like half mad and have shitty websites that nobody knows about, and lives in some weird village in Holland or somewhere in a hut in Wales. So as soon as the flashy website and the marketing comes out, then I'm not sure anymore. And also I'm always about, what am I trying to achieve?
Yes. Yeah. The chlorella, she encourages, to help recovery, and also bowel elimination. So that's
but doesn't chlorella collect everything? It's like a big sponge. It's those kind of creatures like bacteria and fungi. They love like horrid things like mercury, and they can use metals for redox. So they just collect them all because they're not poisonous to them. So you have to be really careful with chlorella. You don't know what it's already collected.
Yeah, I know. That's it. Yeah.
But also back to the heavy metals, when you do alchemy, or like the mineral section of alchemy, things like antimony and all of these, lots of the nasty things, if you treat them in a different way and make an oil out of them, they become healing. So just because something like mercury is massively huge in alchemy, but people have got the wrong idea and then poison themselves. So even something that is perceived to be a toxin, when you make it in a different form, it can become healing.
Yeah.
So yes. Okay, right. Anyway, I need to go, and thank you for your questions and your participation.
Oh,